Hello and welcome to Urdu's Tab. Now, today I will be continuing my saga that is going on. Well, not really my saga, but the saga that is currently happening and arrived in for just in time as they had planned it for 3rd edition of Age of Sigmar. But I had previously talked about how Alario had done her life magic and she had sent her war revenants all across the realms to be spreading that life magic all around. But before we get to that, I have to talk about what exactly is going on or following that book of kragnos still. I know it's a little bit late, but I was doing other stuff. So now here it is the fact that Excelsius was a city that was basically eating itself. It was a city that had a splendor. It was known for a city of secrets for the specific reason that they had began to profit out of this specific stone that was found in the city of Excelsius that would give you some sort of prophecies. And this was a very high commodity that they had profit of in Excelsius. For the rich, they had a bigger kind of stones that would give you a more clear, more concise, a really cool idea. The fact that there's this stone that could give you prophecies and anyone could become a prophet, but at the same time it was sort of kind of like addictive, so it was pretty cool. The fact that it gives you this, the bigger you have, it's a better memory. The smaller you have, it's a more broad kind of prophecy. So it was pretty cool. But at the fact that they profited out of this, also brought in one of the chaos gods, and the chaos god that loves this sort of stuff, we know it's Zinch. Zinch began to send his army so he can be able to better profit out of what exactly is going on with this stone. And just for the lulz, I guess that's what he likes to do, like every other chaos god. They're playing that big game as to who can take over the realms best. So after all of this was being done, finally the forces of Sinch decided to attack, and it wasn't really an attack to take over the city, but it was, I guess, more to batter it and to leave it undefended. And aside from the fact that they were being attacked by the forces of Zinch, later on you had this some sort of weird ass alliance that came to be when he came with the forces of Slanesh and the Skavens, that they decided to make some sort of alliance at the fact that they were gonna see this distrust. So that way, the Talons and the Talon and the voice of Slanesh were going to make their big move to kind of force kind of like something out of their I guess their father kind of thing, or their mother, whatever Slanesh tends to be. So they have this weird section going on here, and so the forces began to attack, and the city of Excelsius was already now being battered by so many sides, and it was pretty crazy at the fact that they were just being attacked left and right, and of course, with all of these attacks and all of these foreseeable kind of things, we have the seeds of distrust. As it is, the city was eating itself apart when it comes to the fact that you had the upper echelons of the city taking more bigger rocks for prophecies, and you had the bottom ones getting the smaller ones, and that kind of had this class system of people. Now you had race against race at the fact that thanks to this attack between Slanesh and the Skaven, the scapegoat became all the elves. You had the Luminous Realm Lords, the Scorched Privateers, and the Wanderers, and the other elves from the cities. They were all being blamed for this attacks because we know that Slanesh favors the souls of the elves. So this was not really helping the elves, and so as the Scorched Privateers were noticing that a lot of the brethren were disappearing, or they were seeing their kin being killed, seeing them hang or stuff like that, and at the fact that the section where the kind of embassy was called, I believe, the Spire Fall, if I remember correctly, I don't remember exactly the name that it was being quarantined by the Knights Excelsius because that section was way too much overrun by the forces of chaos. Then you had this weird kind of vigilante kind of section of the city called the Brotherhood, who were uh, actively looking for elves and killing them and blaming them. And of course, this feeds to the other section that Slanesh is very known for, is the fact that he is the god of excess and obsession. So when this brotherhood began to kill elves in a sort of methodical way, they became very much obsessed and did it to such degree of excess that this kind of fueled them with that chaos power of Slanesh. And so they themselves were becoming the thing that they were saying they were up against. And that is a pretty cool and nifty idea, the fact that, these people thinking that they were doing the greater good were actually becoming the thing that they were hunting. And so they were being kind of in a way being influenced by Slanesh into how they were doing. So the Brotherhood was doing this thing in secret, killing them and being excessive with them, and also in a way taking the mirrors. And that is why we have the models with the mirror and stuff like that, is because they were actually collecting the mirrors and keeping them in later on we learned the fact that these mirrors are used as portals by the voice and the talent of Slanesh. But yeah, the Scourge Privateers were noticing that all of this was happening, and the Scourge Privateers are basically the Calderon overlords of the sea. They're the ones who are in almost full control when it comes to naval battles. We also have the Iron Dipkin, but that is a whole different issue. And we know the fact that they hate the actual Lumineth Ram Lord, so it's a whole different thing going on there. So the Scourge Privateers, they see that the entire city is going out of whack. Their kin are being killed, so they're saying, you know what, we're gonna cut our ties here. We're gonna cut our losses. We're just gonna leave you guys be, and we are out. Peace. And so they decided to leave. And now the city, when it came to the coast side, since Excelsius is a coast city, was defenseless, and that was a very bad idea for what because the orcs later would come back and try to attack through that section. So as all of this was going on, we have the father and daughter duo that decided to contact the actually one of the old races that they have heard about. And of course, being part of the Order Alliance, they also have an embassy in Excelsius, as how they do in every city. So we have the father and daughter duo of Doralia and the dad. They went to the Seraphon embassy, and they're gonna try to contact them to figure out what exactly is going on, and if somehow they can find a way. But before we get to that part, we also have that little short story when it comes to, it's called Premonition, where we have actually a king priest who shows up in one of the council meetings telling the the council as how they're seeing the entire city going out of whack. They actually have this council meeting where they are kind of combining their power of prophecy and trying to see a bigger prophecy. So they're seeing all this doom and gloom stuff going on. But this king's priest tells them that they know what is going on. Lord Krog has his own plan. He sees the great plan. He sees the big picture. And so he tells them not to worry. At this current moment, as they speak, one of the uh, Starborn are actually being sent to go up against one of the Slanesh army that is marching towards it, which is the Slanesh of Sigvald. And I forgot the other guy's name, the big guy, the new model that came out. Sorry, I kind of do not remember that. But I think it was Lord Golka, something like that. But they were both joined together thanks to one of the short stories that they also released. But this king tells the council there that actually some of the Starborn are being sent to them, and that way, when it comes to the very end of that battle, he knows that the power of the Saurons and the Kings are not going to be able to defeat that army that is marching towards the Celsius, but is going to achieve the success of trying to pin together the two leaders, and that way they can destroy one another, and that way they can shorten the army of Slanesh that will they have seen in their prophecy that is going to attack. So that way, when they do attack, it's gonna be very, very much diminished, and it's gonna be more manageable. And as that was going on, now we have the father-daughter duo, and they arrived in the embassy, and they are feel like they're being watched, and which is pretty cool. At like how they explain how this embassy is like. They feel like they're being watched. They can hear little rumbles, little clickers on the side, and they know they're being watched. And suddenly they hear this voice, and this voice tells them that not to worry at this current moment. They know that they are going to be attacked by the orcs, but as they speak, they do have Lord Croak putting some sort of like invisible kind of force, magical force field, kind of force shield, protecting the city from the powers of the orcs and the shamans, and of course Kragnos himself. Because by now they kind of sort of know that he's back, so they have a feel, not really a feeling, because they really cannot see it. Since when he was defeated, he was left out of time, out of the great plan. They kind of see like this void where he is at. So just in case, they decided to push a pull and create this force field, so that way the city can be protected and last a little bit longer. So when all said is done, the city is just eating itself apart when it comes to nobody liking anybody. And so by the time this great wall of orcs arrives, it's already a city in shambles. It's already a city that it has sections quarantined, that the Night Excelsius are basically just diminished by that Skaven attack and Slanesh attack. So they have all of these sides. So now it's just a story of doom and gloom, and we and all of the people inside know that they are doomed, but they summon this kind of idea and this image, how the Hollow Knights, despite of everything and every loss that they do, they actually manage to somehow still find hope. So they kind of channel this idea of the Hollow Knights, and they decide to march on and decide that they will defend the city as best as they can. Now, when this all of this happens, it's not really explained how long it takes for the big wall to arrive, but I am assuming that when all of this is happening, we have that great matchup between Kragnos and Gordrak himself, or the fact that they begin to rumble one another, because it's two alphas. It's basically two guys leading everything. Kragnos is awake. When the moment he woke up, he climbed this mountain. He thought that he was during his time. For him, it's been just maybe weeks, maybe days that he's been trapped in that thing, but he's actually been trapped there for centuries. So when he gets to the top of that mountain, he sees that his people are gone. Everything is just in ruins. But from far away, he sees the green tide of the Great Wall marching on. So he decides to kind of follow his instinct. From far away, he sees that the cities of man, the men that he used to hunt, that he used to find, just very, very fragile. Now he sees that they began to create cities and have a kind of control over the land, but for him it's his land, it's his domain. So what he's gonna do, being the end of empires, he's gonna go up against the empire of man. Does not matter about the Great Wall or anything. All he wants to do is just destroy, destroy, destroy. So he goes down and he decides to march on, and that's when we get the forces. He begins to notice other races, and there's a Garganta force that he sees, and he begins to fight with them. He actually kills some of them, and that is when they realize that maybe this is the Titan that we were waiting for. This is the Titan of our gods. He's the, he's gonna be the next leader, the next big guy that is gonna be leading us. And for the same thing for the Aurochs, we know that the Bone Splitters have been prophesizing about him, so they know him. And of course, later on, we get, the Crew Boys who actually have. It's at the very end, we know that the fact that they've been watching him for a very long time. But here now he's gaining his forces, and that is pretty cool. At the fact that even though that Kragnos is just a relatively new character for the world itself, he actually is just someone who has been there for a long time, and he is in their lore, he is there in their history, and that is pretty cool on itself. So when he finally meets Gordrak, they get this epic battle. You have a Gordrak, and you have Kragnos, and you even have a Gordrak, big guy. I forgot his name. The big dragon creature that he's riding, and they're both fighting. They're punching the living, life out of each other. Blood is coming out. He breaks the one of the wings of Gordrak's big guy, and it's pretty epic. That fight that is going on. I really encourage you to read this book if you haven't done it yet. But it's this really really great fight that they have. And in one of the short stories that came out recently, we know that Gordrak probably, according as how he sees it, he was not giving it a 100% as to the battle. He was actually just having a test battle to see how strong Kragnos was. So to him, and to in our eyes, it was actually more like a draw, since they did knock the life out of each other. They were whacking each other pretty hard. So it does end up in a draw. So that kind of tells you that Gordrak is in a very high level. That Gordrak is just, when it comes crazy, when it comes to power, and honestly, he does deserve the moniker of the Fist of Mork, so of Gork. So that's pretty cool. And in a way, you have the clash of Gork and Mork when it comes to Kragnos against Gordrak. So they finally realize that they should join forces and attack the city of Celsius, because in Gordrak's mind, he's gonna go tumble the empire of Sigmar, because he wants to fight Sigmar, the guy who actually went toe to toe with Gorka Morka. So he wants to prove that he is better than Sigmar, and he deserves, you know, Gorka Morka's attention and everything. So that is actually his plan, while Kragnos is just to destroy and have this entire domain for himself. And so that's pretty cool when it comes to that. And they finally decide to attack the city. When they arrive to the city, Kragnos is really not present until maybe towards the end of the battle. In the beginning, it was mainly just the orcs against the free city folk that were deciding to defend the city, and it was pretty cool at the fact that the way they were doing it. Uh, you have kind of, let's the best image that I could make you picture is that Lord of the Rings movie scene when they are attacking Helm's Deep. So that is the best way that I could explain it. There's this gigantic battle where all the orcs are just launching themselves to the wall. You have this Gargants just throwing rocks, killing a bunch of the free folk, some of the elves, some of the Knight Excelsius, and just as everything was just reaching its climax, the Gordrak finally decided to also join the battle, because he's the leader of the big war, and he has to be the toughest of them all. So he has to be there in the nick of battle. So he's also attacking. He's also trying to destroy the wall. And right across, you see kragnos, that he decides that it's time for him to do his stuff, and he decides to launch himself. And as he is about to attack the wall, we have now this plan of Lord Croak be enact, is the fact that when he hits the wall, he hits this force field, and so he's not able to penetrate it in his first try, but he keeps on doing it and doing it. And as also Gordrak, he also has the that battering ram that has the head of that Titan beast, and so he decides to hit it, but it breaks. So that's kind of bad for it. He was having this hope that he was going to use that to go and break the doors of uh, of Azir, so he can fight with Sigmar. But now that is destroyed. But now kragnos, he is keep on hitting that wall, and he finally breaks the force field and decides to go in with everybody else. The Gargants keep on throwing blocks, and that breaks the walls, and everything is just now it just becomes a cluster of just fighting, you know. And so now you have this cluster F. I don't want to say the word, but you have this cluster F that is going on, and so you have close quarter combat. So now you have a bunch of Grods, and you have a bunch of orcs from the Bone Splitters, from the Iron Jaws. You have the Gargants, and you have the ogres. They're all fighting in there, and even some of the ogre mercenaries were actually fighting on the human side. So since they're mercenaries, all they care is money. So they were just fighting one another, and it was just crazy fighting and everything. And as all of this is going on, Slanesh, the talent of Slanesh and the voice of Slanesh decide to make their play. So in the Spirefall section of the city, where we have the Brotherhood, who has been doing their excessive stuff, they finally reached to this point where they actually have been consumed by the corruption of chaos, and they themselves become kind of chaotic demons and stuff like that. And so from that section on, we also have Slanesh attacking that section. But as all of this was going on, we now have Lord Guardsteel, that he has now been reforged, and he manages to just zap in a nick of time. And now we have the Hollow Knights and the Knights Excelsiors, plus the Free Guild attacking, helping defend the city. And just by the nick of it, they managed to actually hold off the city. It was not completely destroyed, but the city was completely and utterly left in ruins. Some sections, I'm pretty sure, were still standing up. Some of the orcs that were trying to attack by the sea were actually taken down by all the sea creatures that were going on in there, and also by the fact that Morathi decided to somehow make an appearance, which is pretty cool, at the fact that towards the end we realized that Sigmar is kind of okayish with Morathi still being part of the alliance. So I was kind of wrong at the fact, seeing that maybe the Grand Alliance was over between Morathi and Sigmar, but it seems like Morathi somehow still found a way to kind of still be not in the goodwill of Sigmar, but still be sort of an ally still in there. So that's pretty cool when it comes to that. And so we have Lord Croak appearing, we have Morathi appearing, and we have the clash of the gods between Kragnos and Morathi, at the fact that Morathi has heard about Kragnos himself, which is pretty cool. That's kind of a little new lore that they added to the story, at the fact that Morathi has heard of Kragnos, which in universe, that is pretty cool. But for us, being the first time that we have heard of kragnos, is an interesting tidbit when it comes to that. That actually this world is actually been lived on for thousands of years, so pretty natural that Morathi would have known a little bit of kragnos. But of course, she does not understand their language. So that's pretty cool. Also, another thing that they talked about is the fact that kragnos speaks in a very old language, so he doesn't. They really do not understand each other. And the way that Morathi and Lord Croak kind of refer to one another is at the fact that Morathi, when he sees Lord Croak that he's fighting there, and he sees his Saurius warriors and stuff like that, he calls Croak of Lustria, which is a very cool callback to the world that was when Lord Croak was from the forest of Lustria. So the fact that they keep on referencing the old world, that's pretty cool. Hopefully, when they do release the Warhammer Old World, we get a bunch of models that transfer pretty well to Age of Sigmar, just so they can make this connection between the old world and Age of Sigmar. So that's also pretty cool. And the way they kind of quote unquote defeat Kragnos is by creating some sort of a portal to another place, which is pretty cool. It shows off the strength of Lord Croak. We already knew that Lord Croak was just whoa, like beyond god tier, because Lord Croak is just he's a pépite, as they would say in French. He's just amazing, Lord Croak. He creates some sort of portal with illusion magic held by with Morathi, and they create this sort of illusion kind of thing. And where, since Kragnos, he really hates that Draconith, he sees dragons and he just wants to hunt dragons. And by now, the monster version of Morathi has actually just been kind of almost defeated by Kragnos. They kind of see that that's the only way out to kind of survive. Well, not really survive, but somehow defeat Kragnos for now, since later on they're pretty sure they will meet again. But they create this illusion where they're actually sending Kragnos to the mountain peaks in Gur, where basically chaos is more present, so that way they can have this chaos area. And maybe it makes an interesting tidbit connection to maybe the chaos dwarves, because they do send him to a mountain, and when he does arrive to this mountain, you do have some of the cruel boys in there. And the cruel boys being in mountains kind of gives a little callback to at the fact that the chaos dwarves of the world that were living in a mountain and were isolated in an area where it was just influenced by chaos, and so they became chaos influenced. So maybe the cruel boys are there to do their slave trade with the chaos dwarves, and that is how they see Kragnos there, and they realize that that is their prophesied god, and so they should get them and join hands with him. And that is the way they kind of quote unquote defeat Kragnos when it comes to this. And of course, every time the book ends, it ends with a little tidbit, and it was pretty cool. We got a little tidbits from every other god. We have that interesting conversation of Morathi with some of the Stormcast Eternal, saying that it's better that it was her who took over Sadie and not some other, uh, chaos or destruction kind of alliance, and so it's better to have an ally take over the city than anybody else. And they don't like that idea, but they know she's kind of right. And then we have the surprise appearance of Grugny, which was basically confirmed that it is him. He tells basically he's also carried on overlords that they need to shut up and they need to get to work because there are important events happening, and that is pretty cool. So yeah, guys, that is basically the rest of the events that happen in the Broken Realms series. I will still be continuing this lore because they are still releasing new stories, and honestly it's pretty fun to do these little videos. I really like the idea that of everything that they introduced in this book. So hopefully you liked my little summarized I decided to just make it into 2 videos, so it could just be a quick summary as to what is going on for the people who want to catch up to it, and also at the fact that as 3rd edition is coming up, a lot of new lore is going to be added. So I will be making new videos when it comes to the new lore, the new battle tomes that were going to be released, we know for sure. So look forward to that. And so, as I said, this is pretty cool. I find it really amazing how they tied in all the books together, how they at the very end they decided to show up everything that was happening. So that's pretty cool. I liked it really a lot. One of my favorite books, actually. Also the fact that, you know, the ogres are getting a lot of interesting stuff going on. So hopefully you liked the video, hopefully you give this video a thumbs up, and hopefully you get to subscribe, and hopefully you like the content that I'm putting up. And remember, not everything is what it seems in the realm of